Somewhere along the line, someone decided that your 20s were supposed to look a specific way. Career sorted, relationship stable, body together, finances under control, purpose located, passion monetized, mental health managed. And somehow all of this was supposed to happen simultaneously during the same decade when your brain is still literally under construction. Because here is the thing nobody mentions when they are busy calling your generation lost, lazy, too sensitive, too online, too distracted, too everything. The prefrontal cortex, which is the part of the brain responsible for long-term planning, decision-making, impulse control, and understanding consequences, does not fully develop until the age of 25, which means society has been handing 20-year-olds a blueprint for a finished life, and then wondering why the building keeps collapsing, and then has the audacity to call it a character flaw. The pressure on this generation is not the same pressure that previous generations carried, and the research confirms it. A study by the American Psychological Association found that millennials and Generation Z consistently report higher levels of stress, anxiety, and depression than any other generation measured since the study began. And before someone in the comments says it is because they are soft, let us look at what they inherited. A global pandemic that hit during their most formative years, a housing market that turned home ownership into a fantasy, a job market that requires 3 years of experience for entry-level positions, a social media landscape that turned comparison into a full-time activity available 24 hours a day, student debt that follows people into their 30s like an uninvited roommate who never contributes to the bills, and on top of all of that, the expectation to have it figured out by 23 or quietly accept that you have somehow already failed at life. Here is what the pressure to have everything figured out actually does to a person. And this is the part that nobody talks about at the dinner table when relatives ask why you are not married yet. Psychologist Erik Erikson, who spent his career mapping the stages of human development, described the 20s as the stage of identity versus role confusion. The primary psychological task of this decade is not to have everything figured out. It is to explore, to try things, to fail safely, to discover through experience who you actually are and what you actually value before committing to a life built on someone else's timeline. When that natural process of exploration gets replaced by the pressure to perform adulthood prematurely, people do not just feel stressed. They feel like they are failing at something fundamental, like everyone else received a manual for their 20s and theirs got lost in the mail. Spoiler, nobody got the manual. Some people are just better at pretending they did. And here is the cruelest part of this specific pressure. It hits hardest during the exact window of life when you are most vulnerable to it. Research in developmental psychology shows that the 20s are characterized by what psychologist Jeffrey Jensen Arnett called emerging adulthood, a distinct life stage marked by instability, self-focus, feeling in between, and a sense of possibility that coexists with genuine confusion. It is supposed to feel unstable. The instability is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It is a sign that you are in the middle of becoming something. But when the world around you is measuring your worth by how stable you look on the outside, you start to experience the natural messiness of becoming as personal failure. And personal failure in your 20s, when your identity is still forming, has a way of becoming the story you tell yourself about who you are for decades afterward. The decade that was supposed to be about discovery becomes the decade you spend recovering from the pressure to already be discovered. Here is what nobody told you and what this entire conversation has been building toward. There is no timeline. There has never been a timeline. The timeline you are measuring yourself against was invented by a generation that lived in a completely different economic, social, and psychological reality, and then handed it to you as if the world had not fundamentally changed between their 20s and yours. Your 20s are not a deadline. They are a foundation. And foundations are not supposed to be visible. They are supposed to be underground, unglamorous, and strong enough to hold everything that comes after them. The people who looked the most lost in their 20s often built the most remarkable lives in their 30s and 40s because they spent their 20s actually living instead of performing adulthood for an audience. So if you are in your 20s right now and nothing looks the way you thought it would by now, that is not failure. That is the foundation being laid in the silence where nobody is watching. And one day, you will look back at this exact season and understand that the pressure you survived in it was not evidence that you were behind. It was evidence that you were building something real in a world that kept telling you to hurry up and finish before you had even properly begun. So what would you do differently right now if you stopped measuring your 20s against a timeline that was never designed for the life you are actually trying to build?